All right, let me start with a question. What would you do tomorrow if you knew you couldn't fail? How big would you dare to dream? What would you dare to engage in? The other day, I was driving to Dunstan High School to speak to a group of youths about success as part of the Sir Peter Blake Leadership Week. And I realised on the drive that I was going there with the filtered version, with the nice version of how to create success. And so on the hour-long drive between Queenstown and Alexandra, I took out a piece of paper and was scribbling some notes down just furiously on the way. And by the time I got there, I threw out the presentation that I had and went in with this scrap of paper and delivered a presentation to them on the realities of what it takes to create success. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. To people who aren't committed to creating success in their lives, this can be quite confronting. But to people who are committed to it, to people who are excited about it, this presentation will be exciting for you. Far better is it to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much or suffer much because they live in that grey twilight that knows not victory or defeat. Who here has at times in their lives lived in that grey twilight? Who here has played it safe at times in their lives? We all have, haven't we? But who here has at times as well dared to dream, dared to go after something exceptional, something that people said you couldn't do, and you knew that you were going to have failures, you knew you were going to have challenges, but you did it anyway, and you went on and created something absolutely exceptional in your life? Who's done that? How much better does that feel? Much better. Who wants to live? How much of a thrill about life do you have when you're living in that way? Who would want to live in that way all of their lives? Every single day of their lives? I know I did. And that's what I went out to study, and that's what I went out to create in my own life, and that's what I want to share with you today. A question that's driven me for the last 11 years is, how do I create consistent and outstanding success in all areas of my life? I think if you want to master something in your life, you've got to study it. You've got to go out and you've got to find the masters. You've got to go out and find the best people you can, and you've got to learn from them. And so that's what I went out and did. I went out and studied with the top people in personal development, guys like Tony Robbins. I spoke with the top people in sports, people like Richie McCaw, top business people, people like Sir Ian Edgar and Diane Foreman. Got to know them, got to understand them. And I studied success and I applied it in my life. But over the last couple of years, I've been asking another question. It's been great, the success I've achieved in my life, but I wanted to know, what are the principles that I had to apply and that anyone else can apply to achieve outstanding levels of success? Because I think when you can distill things down to actual principles, that means you can replicate it. That means you can apply it repeatedly in your life to create consistent levels of success. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. But before we do that, let me ask you a question. What is success? And it's not a rhetorical question. So tell me, shout it out.
Achieving what you set out to do.
Achieving what you set out to do. Excellent. What else is success?
Creating options.
Creating options. Love it. What else is it?
Being happy.
Being happy. Fantastic. What else?
Being proud of your kids.
Being proud of your kids. What else is it? What are some of the selfish things?
Winning.
Winning.
Having the car of your choice.
Having the car that you want.
Making lots of money.
Making lots of money. You know, you're all right. Those are all parts of success. And I think that success is 20% about the stuff. It's about the winning. It's about the achievement. It's about the things, the car, you know, the income. And it's 80%, it's about us. It's about who we are. It's about who we become. It's about the emotions that we live with day to day, our patterns of emotions. Because I think that the purpose of setting goals is not just to achieve those goals. It's to become the people we need to be to achieve those goals. And I'll say that again because I think that's really important. I think the purpose of setting goals is not just to achieve the goal. It's to become the people we need to be to achieve those goals. Because the people that we become on our road to achieving those goals are what stay with us. You know, who I had to become the New Zealand Extreme Ski Champ was far more important than winning the title, because the title comes and goes. It's like, yeah, it's great, but then you move on. But who I had to become to achieve that was what I could then go and apply in business. You know, because I entered business with no experience in business, but what I'd mastered, the patterns of and the behaviours and the habits that I'd mastered in skiing, I could apply in other areas of my life. So I think success is a fulfilling life lived in a way that's good for you, good for others, where you become the person you need to be to make consistent progress towards what's important. So really, success is very personal, isn't it? You know, what I define as success in my life is probably not what you're going to define as success in your life. But that's not what's important. You know, success to everyone is like a fingerprint. You know, we all have our own, it's so unique. We all have our own definition of it. But what I'm going to share today are the principles that I've used, not just that, not the how that I've done it. Because the how I've done it is unique to my current situation. The principles are what anyone can apply and what I believe anyone must apply. Because as I said, having studied success with so many top performing people, there are some key patterns that emerge. Because people are successful in so many different areas, what they do is very, very different. But the key patterns are consistent across every single person. And I think that's something that, you know, in medicine, you look at, you know, do you do something and get the same result every single time? And, you know, someone can do something in business and get one result, someone can do something in business and get completely different results. So the actual how-to is going to be very personal. But what has been consistent are these three things that I'm going to share today. So I guess you're probably sitting there thinking, well, I mean, who am I? Why am I talking to you? And probably more importantly, why should I be listening to this guy? Mark kindly shared a bit about me before. As I said, you know, I think success is personal, and by my definition of it, I've achieved what was important to me in my life. You know, I graduated from medical school and then went on to become the New Zealand Extreme Ski Champ. Then I went on to set up MedRecruit, which is my medical recruitment business. We're in the business of placing doctors throughout hospitals across Australia and New Zealand. Our vision is about enriching lives. And, you know, even more importantly, I've, you know, is my wife Claire and our two gorgeous little girls. And we've had success along the way. My company's been in the Deloitte Fast 50 for the past 4 years. We entered as the fastest growing service business in New Zealand. And as Mark said, I'm the Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year, well, I was last year. But I certainly haven't been successful in my life. And I've certainly not lived my life in a way that I could be proud of. I haven't always been the upstanding citizen that you see before you. Back in 2002, and for many years prior to that, I wasn't living my life in a way that I was proud of at all. I was drinking heavily, and I was living life in a way that wasn't good for me, and it certainly wasn't good for anyone else. And in 2002, I decided to, I was out drinking, and I decided it would be a good idea to do a backflip off a 2-metre high wall outside the Captain Cook Tavern in Dunedin. And the stupid thing about it, so that's not the stupid thing about it is I wasn't showing off to anyone. There was no one watching. I was doing it for my own amusement.
That's really stupid.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like dumb, and then you just go to new levels of dumb. And so I landed on my head, and I went into a coma. Now, I think we're going to have good days in our lives, and we're going to have bad days in our lives. And one thing I know for certain is we're not going to know which is which at the time. At the time when my parents got a call at 2:30 in the morning saying, you better get on the next flight to Dunedin tomorrow morning because we don't know if your son's going to come out of this coma, they would have said it's a bad day. When I then came out of the coma and the doctors told me, you're not going to regain full brain function, so you probably won't return to medical school and you'll certainly never ski again, I would have said it was a bad day. But I think lessons come to us in 3 ways. I think you get the little feather, that little tickle, You know, that little tickle that says, you know, something's not quite right, better make a change. Now you ignore the feathers and you get the less subtle brick. And the brick comes through, knocks you upside the head and said, right, time to change. Now I had a lot of bricks and I had an amazing ability to ignore the lessons that life was giving me. So if you ignore enough bricks, you get the Big Mac truck, which comes through and just knocks you over and says change is a must. Now, the Big Mac truck can kill you at times, but fortunately it didn't. As a doctor, I've seen people come into the ER with head injuries less than what I had who have died. So I mean, it was a bad head injury. I had bleeding inside my head, my brain was shifted over, they drilled a hole in the head. But I got lucky because the head injury taught me the most valuable lesson that I've ever learned in my life. It taught me to raise my standards. It made me make the decision to raise my standards in my life. It taught me that for my life to change, first I had to change. And since making that decision to raise my standards, everything good in my life has come. Everything good. My wife, Claire, who knew me before the head injury and thought I was a dick. But my wife, Claire, our two gorgeous girls, my business, my sporting success, everything good in my life has come since making that decision. We're going to have good days in our lives and we're going to have bad days. And we're not going to know which is which at the time. Looking back on it, the head injury was one of the best days of my life because it taught me to raise my standards, and it taught me, and through doing that, I learned the lessons that I'm going to share with you today. And this is what changed my life completely. But before we do that, I'd like to start with a story. There's a young man who wants to be successful, who wants to be rich, and he seeks out a guru. And because the guru's rich, the guru's wealthy, and the guru apparently knows the secret of creating wealth. So he seeks out the guru, and he finds him and he says, Guru, I want to be rich, I want to be wealthy. Can you teach me? And the guru says, of course. Meet me at the beach tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. And the guy says, no, I don't think you heard me correctly. I don't want to learn how to swim. I want to learn how to be rich. And the guru says, I'll see you at the beach at 4 a.m. And so the guy says, all right, fine, he's the guru, I'll meet him at the beach. So he turns up at the beach dressed for success. He's in his best suit, he's feeling good, he's ready to learn the secret of success. And he sees the guru standing knee deep in the water already in his swimming togs. And the guru beckons to him, he says, come out into the water with me. And the guy says, look, I'm in my best suit, I'm not going to come in the water. And the guru says, I thought you wanted to learn the secret of success. And he says, fine, I'll play your game. And he walks out, knee deep in the water, and he says, all right, tell me the secret of success. And the guru says, walk with me deeper. And at this point, the guy gets a bit pissed off. He's like, come on, I told you, I'm not here to learn how to be a lifeguard. I want to be rich. I want to learn the secret of success. And the guru says, look, you're already part way in. Why not just come in a bit deeper? And the guy says, all right, fine, I'll play your game. My suit's already wet. So he walks in until he's about chest deep in water. And at that point, he stands there looking at the guru. And he says, all right, can you now share with me the secret of success? And the guru says, of course. And he grabs his head and he dunks him under the water. And he holds him under the water. And the guy's like, all right, this is a bit stupid, but at some point he's going to pull me up, he's going to tell me the secret, I'll play the game. At a minute, his lungs are starting to burn. And he's like, all right, this is getting serious. I need to come up for air now. At a minute 30, he's about to expire. He's got absolutely no air in him. His lungs are burning. And he suddenly just starts fighting with the last bit of energy that he's got. He fights, elbows the guru, pulls his head up, takes a breath, and just as he's about to punch the guru, he says, all right, why don't you just tell me the frickin' secret of success? And the guru says, when you need success as much as you need air, then you'll be successful. When you need success as much as you needed air in that moment, then you'll be successful. In that moment, before he was about to expire because he had no air, what was he thinking about? Survival, air. What else was he thinking about? Nothing. He was thinking about one thing. He was totally focused on one thing. He was hungry for one thing in his life. And that's what you need to get to, I think, to create outstanding levels of success. Everyone who I know who's been outstanding, who's created exceptional success in their life, has been hungry. They've had pig-headed determination. They've had total focus to the point where nothing else matters. And when you get to that point, then all of the rest of the stuff falls into place. A lot of people come to me now and say, look, I want to do this, I want to start a business, I want to create, do all sorts of cool things. And the first thing I ask them is, how hungry are you? How hungry are you? Because unless you get hungry, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. Unless you get to that point where you are so focused, where you're so determined, none of the other stuff is going to fall into place because you're going to give up. You're going to quit. But then the next question people ask is, well, how do I get hungry? I'm kind of hungry, but I want this, but I'm not that hungry. And it's a great question. The first thing to do is you've got to get crystal clear about what it is you want in your life. There's an old saying that, if a sailor knows not what harbour he seeks, any wind is the right wind. Probably I'm paraphrasing to some extent. But that's undeniably true. If you don't know where you're going, then you're just going to head off in all directions. Prior to the head injury, I had no idea what I wanted in my life. I just kind of went from thing to thing and I got caught up in the in-between. Show of hands here. How many people here have written down goals? Okay, a lot of people here, it's outstanding. A lot more than usual. Usually you get a show of hands at sort of 5 or 10% of people. But there are still quite a few people who don't. So let me share with you a study done at Yale where they looked at a graduating class. And they looked at this graduating class and they studied a whole lot of factors. And one thing they looked at was who had written down goals. They then revisited with this class 20 years later. And they looked at the results that they'd got in their lives. The 3% of people, just 3% of people who had written down goals had accumulated 97% of the collective wealth of that group. Think about it. 3% have got 97% of the wealth. And the only difference that they measured was written down goals. They were also happier and they had better relationships and better health. So having written down goals is really important. So for the people who don't, if there's one thing you take out of this, it's go away and write down written down goals, because that's the first part of taking something ethereal, something in your head, and making it real. But the thing is, most people stop at written goals. Most people don't even get to that, but the people who do, they stop there. But then they're missing a key thing that I think is critical. Because while the goal is the target, your why is the driving force. It's the fuel to get you to the target. No one really wants, you say that's ridiculous, but no one wants $1 million. They want what $1 million is going to get you. No one wants a case full of paper. They want what's that going to offer, the freedom, the choices, the whatever it is for your family. When the why is strong enough, the how will always reveal itself. And the key to having a strong why to your goal is, you want it personal, what's it going to do for you, but what's it going to do for other people too? Because we'll all do more for other people than we'll do for ourselves. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this example. Imagine, okay, show of hands, who here has got kids? Hey, most of you. If you don't have kids, imagine your partner or someone really important in your life in this story. So you're walking along the road and you see a house, and the house is on fire. And surrounding the house is a moat. And in the moat are sharks with laser beams on their head. The Dr. Evil's thing had come true. So sharks and laser beams. Around the moat, you've got a 10-foot high razor wire fence. And on the fence is a gang of poisonous dart frogs and spider monkeys. They're dangerous little creatures. And someone says to you, before I ask that, who here would like $100? Yeah, everyone. Who wouldn't? But then someone says to you, you're walking along with the house and everything, and they said, there's $100 on the table in that house. Who here is going in and getting it? No one. There's usually one idiot. And at that point, I'm like, well, you can stop paying attention. But no one's going to go in and get the $100, are they? Now, imagine the same thing. burning house, sharks and laser beams in the moat, razor wire fence, poisonous dart frogs, spider monkeys, and they say to you, your son or your daughter is asleep in the house. And they're not going to wake up unless you get in and do something about it. Who here is now getting into that house? What will you do to get into that house? Anything, whatever it takes, won't you? That's the power of a compelling reason why. That's the power of hunger. You know, if you need to create outstanding levels of success, you need to create that in your own life. You need to make it not a should, not a, oh, that'd be nice to get into the house. You need to make it a must, whatever it takes. When I started MedRecruit, my company, I was entering a market where one company had a total monopoly, and I had no business experience. My only work experience was working as a doctor, working on ski resorts, and my pamphlet run. And I had very little capitalisation as well. Now, do you think it was possible that I was entering, that there were other people with more experience? You know, we created a business. I created a business that, you know, was in the Deloitte Fast 50 for 4 years. We entered as the second fastest growing business in New Zealand. Is it possible that we were up against businesses with more experienced management teams? Absolutely. Better capitalisation, better market conditions, more experienced governance. Absolutely. Pretty much every other business in New Zealand. But there was one thing I had over anyone else, and that was I was hungrier. And because I was hungry, and because I knew why it was important for me, I did whatever it took. You know, I was happy to work 15, 16-hour days for 3 years straight without taking a single holiday, without taking a break. It didn't matter. I was focused on what was important to me in my life, and it was creating success in the business. Emmett Smith, I like American football. He's a great American football player. He said, a great quote, that all men are created equal. Some just work harder in pre-season. How hard are you going to work in pre-season? How hungry you are determines how hard you're going to work in pre-season. How much effort you're going to put in. How much time and effort and blood, sweat and tears you're going to put in to become an overnight success. Hunger. It's the first thing. And without it, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So if you want to create any level of success in your life, the first place to start is to get hungry. And then the next thing is you need to be willing at any moment to sacrifice who you are and what you have for who you need to become and what you want. I'll say that again. You need to be willing to sacrifice who you are and what you have for who you need to become and what you want. The reality is that anything you want in life is available. You're just going to need to give a few things up. Remember that when you say yes to anything in your life, you're saying no to something else. The important thing is to make sure that you're not saying yes to the unimportant and no to the important stuff. So I'd ask you to imagine, put yourself 10 years in the future and you're looking back. How do you feel 10 years from the future if you're looking back and you've created an exceptional life? You've created financial success, relationship success, health success. You've created all the important stuff in your life and for you and your family. And you've had to give up a few things along the way. How do you feel? You feel exceptional, don't you? Now, imagine going 10 years in the future. And you weren't prepared to give up those things. You weren't prepared to give up Facebook and need to be on Facebook 2 hours a day, or television, or sitting around watching TV or hanging out. Wasn't prepared to give that stuff up because that's important to me. But go 10 years down in the future and you haven't created what you want in your life. Your health's not where you want it to be. Your finances aren't where they want to be. Your relationship's not where you want it to be. How do you feel about that? Stink, don't you? You feel rubbish. And the reality is that actually what you need to give up is meaningless. It doesn't matter at all. It may seem like an important thing at the time because this is what I do, but it's meaningless. I'll share with you a bit about what I gave up to create everything that's important in my life. One thing that we need to give up, I think this is so important, are our stories, our BS, belief systems. Because the reality is that, the only thing between us and what we want is us. And I think three of the most important systems or beliefs that people need to give up are firstly, or it should change. It should change, but it's okay if it doesn't. If you want to create success, you've got to make that it must change. The other one you've got to do is give up is it's someone else's job to change it. Your success, your life is no one else's responsibility. It's your own responsibility. It's your life. The belief has got to be, I must change it. And then the third belief that holds so many people back is that I can't change it. When you get hungry enough, you give up the I can't and you say, I can change it. Because when you can't, you must. And when you must, you can. Go back to that burning house. Or go back to the burning house and the $100 in there. I should get it. Probably better if someone else got it. And I can't do it. I mean, if someone says that there's $100 in there, you're going to go, I can't get in there. Now go back to the burning house and you've got your son or daughter in there. You're not standing around going, well, I should get in there, or hope someone else turns up to get in there, or I can't do it. You're saying, I got to get in there, it's my job, and sure as heck I can do it. When you're hungry enough, you're prepared to give up that BS, those stories, those things that hold you back. And until you do, they're going to hold you back. Nelson Mandela is someone who I've got immense respect for and, learned a lot about. And I think he's a great example of this because he spent 30 years incarcerated for his beliefs, for who he was as a person. And while I'm sure at times he was pissed off, he was angry, he was resentful, he was bitter, he was prepared to give that up. And he came out with forgiveness, with love in his heart, ready to create a free South Africa. And what he did by giving up that is change the world. And all it took is he had to give some things up. What I like about this slide is it makes me and Nelson look like we're like tight. But the reason I got to meet me up there is after the head injury, I had to give some things up. I had to give up my BS. I had to give up it should change. The way I was living, I knew it should change. I knew I wasn't living in a particularly healthy way. But it should change. I'll get to it at some point. And I can't change it. This is me. This is who I am. After the head injury, I had to give that bullshit up. And it had to become, I must change it and I can change it. And I did. I gave that up and I gave up the booze. Gave up how I was living. Gave up my identity of I could party harder than anyone else. Gave that up. And because I gave that up, which seemed hard at the time, this didn't feel easy in the moment. But man, everything good in my life has come since giving that up. So looking back on it, it's like, did I give anything of any value up? No, nothing. I gave up meaningless stuff to create what was meaningful in my life. So the question I have for you is, what do you need to give up? What are you holding on to? Or what are you spending your time in that's not moving you towards what's important and what's meaningful in your life? Make sure you're not saying yes to the unimportant at the expense of saying no to the important. When you say yes to anything, you say no to something else. Don't say no to what's important in your life. And the third thing to create outstanding levels of success in your life are that if it's hard, then you do it hard. And hey, if it's easy, you do it easy too. You take the easy wins too, but more often than not, it's not easy. More often than not, it is hard. But successful people understand that failure, that challenge is inevitable, but defeat is optional. I love this quote from Lance Armstrong. Pain is temporary. It may last a minute or an hour or a day or a year, but eventually it will subside and something else will take its place. If I quit, however, it lasts forever. That surrender, even the smallest act of giving up, stays with me. So when I feel like quitting, I ask myself, which would I rather live with? Which would you rather live with? Quitting or a bit of pain? The fact that it's Lance Armstrong is a great time as well to mention that this whole thing has got to be done through your filter of your values and what integrity means to you. So I'm not asking you to do whatever it takes at the expense of anything to create success in your life, because you've got to do that through your own value system. What was acceptable for me to give up back when I started the business wouldn't be now that I've got 2 little girls. It wouldn't be acceptable for me now to be working 16 hours a day every single day. So I've got different values right now in my life. But you've got to make that choice and then choose whether to stay within the line or overstep it, as some people do. But the thing is that most people like it easy. Most people want success if it's convenient. They want it, if everything falls into place and I don't have to do too much. They like their creature comforts. They're spoiled. They're soft. Most people aren't prepared to do what it actually takes to create success. When I was skiing professionally, and we're at the sort of the forefront of the free ski movement, which is now gone bananas. And we were at the time when we were using vices to turn up the backs of our skis so we could take off jumps backwards and lands backwards. So it was all new. What they're doing now is just absolutely unbelievable. But we understood that we were going to hurt. We were going to have a lot of pain. Trying out these new tricks and stuff, we took hits and falls, and you break yourself and you get back up and you try again. But we understood that if you're going to fall 1,000 times, then you're going to have to get up 1,001 times. Because if you fall 999 times and don't get up the 1,000th, you might be that close to success and never actually know it. Because we understood that at the end of pain is success. Who here has read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich? It's a phenomenal book. Get through it if you can. It's old language, but it's a phenomenal book. It absolutely changed my life. But there's a great story in that book about a guy called R.U. Darby. Now, Darby's uncle went west with the gold rush, and he bought himself a claim, and he started digging and sent his first samples to the smelter, and came back gold. He'd struck it rich. So Darby's uncle was like, excellent. Went back to Maryland. Recruited R.U. Darby, and they, together between family and friends, raised the money they needed to buy all the machinery, and they went back out west, bought the machinery, set up, and started digging. And the first car of ore that they sent to the smelter came back gold. And they were excited. The next car they sent to the smelter, nothing. Next car, nothing. All the cars after that came back with nothing. And they persisted for months. But eventually they were like, all right, there's no gold here, give up, move on. And they sold their the claim and the machinery to a junk man and said, look, if pennies on the dollar, and they went back to Maryland with the tails between their legs. Now the junk man was smart. The junk man got an engineer along and said, look, I got this claim, got all this equipment, can you have a look at it? And the engineer surveyed the site and he said, well, here's the problem. They're digging 3 feet from where they need to dig. And so they shifted the machinery. This is a true story. They shifted the machinery, they dug, and they hit one of the richest gold strikes in Colorado. And so the guy became, a millionaire. But here's the point of the story. Darby heard about this. And Darby learned the lesson that I will never quit. And Darby went on to become America's leading seller of life insurance. He was one of the first guys to sell over $1 million of life insurance in a year. And he became incredibly wealthy and incredibly successful because he got the lesson that I'll never quit. Who here has gone, walking in the mountains, walking in the hills? And when you're sort of climbing something, a peak, and you're going up and you're like, oh, I'm just about there, and you get there and you're like, oh, there's another one. Down you go, and up you go, and you get to there, and oh, there's another one. And you keep going until eventually you're like, well, this probably isn't going to be it, is it? Again, you get to the top and you're like, oh, I'm at the top this time. That's like success. You never know when you're actually going to get there. On the road to success, it's very windy and you don't know around which bend success is actually going to be. But if you give up, if you quit when it gets hard, then you'll never know. You might be 3 feet from gold. You might be staying down the 999th time when it's going to take 1,000 times. Champions know that failure is inevitable, that challenge is inevitable, but defeat is optional. So today, this whole talk is really about taking the external and making it internal. It's about stopping being driven by the external world and starting to create your own world. After the head injury, I had to stand up. I had to stand up and become the person I needed to be to create a life that I could be proud of. Anyone can do that. Who here is ready to create a life? I'm sure you've got fantastic lives. Who here is ready to create an even better life? To create a life that you can absolutely be proud of? Who here wants to dare to dream? Who here wants to go after the big goals, the big exciting things in their life, knowing that you can't fail? Right on. I'm right where I need to be right now. You are right where you need to be right now. Everything in your lives has led you to now, and now is right on time. Everything in your life, your failures, your defeats, your challenges, your wins, your adventures, your experiences, everything has got you to this point in time. And where you go from here is 100% your choice. And I think that's pretty exciting. You've got a choice as to how hungry you're going to get. Are you going to get clear about what you want and why you want it? And then go at it like you need air. Like you need success, like you need air. Are you going to give it that much level of determination? Are you going to give up the things you need to give up? You're going to sacrifice what you need to sacrifice. And know that you're going to say no to the unimportant because you're going to say yes to what's really, truly important in your life. And then are you going to do that in a way where you say, hey, if it's hard, I'll do it hard. You know, I know that this is not necessarily going to be easy, but I'm not going to quit. I don't know around which bend success is going to lie, but I'm sure as heck not going to find out by quitting. When you want success in your life, you have to own it. You have to breathe it. You have to drink it. You have to eat it. You have to live it until every single cell in your body is vibrating at a higher frequency. Because until you get to that point, you'll never be as successful as you could be. But when you get to that point, the world is yours. Man, anything is possible, and success becomes inevitable. You understand that success is not a destination. It's not somewhere to get to. It's a way of living. It's a way of approaching life where you know that you can't fail. You know you ultimately can't be beaten, and that you know that you're going to create the level of success that you want in your life. So I'll ask you again. What would you do tomorrow if you knew you couldn't fail? Now go out and do it. Thank you very much.